Yours.
The most powerful 500-watt radio station in America.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
1460 WVOX.
WVOX.
Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses with my co-host John Sharan and Ardina Seward. You guys have your homes battened down because apparently we may be getting some torrential downpour, and there's even thoughts of tornadoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're having that. They're saying that potential till midnight tonight. So,
or Steve Miller calls it tornadic activity.
Tornadic activity. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
You know, he's a watcher for the National Weather Service. Yeah, in Florida. Matter of fact, he may be calling in with some weather updates. I hope he doesn't do it goofy. So, Ardina, why don't you introduce our first two guests?
Well, this is a show that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And
really?
It is about Latinos and African Americans who support Donald Trump. And today on the show, we have Jimmy, the rent is too bleep high, McMillan, who is a staunch Trump supporter. Jimmy is also a vet. And we have Nicole.
And he has great facial hair, too.
Great facial hair. And Nicole Mincy, all the way from South Jersey, who has an online store called Pro-Trump 45. So let's open the show. Jimmy, you there?
I'm listening to you not pronounce my name. It's ready to damn high, not ready to black high.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
damn is in the Bible, and don't be afraid to use it if you don't understand it.
Well, thank you for the correction, Reverend. Now, let's
I'm
start.
not a reverend. Don't step on my toes. Now, I'm not Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. You got the wrong person.
All right. So why don't we just start off, Jimmy? Why do you support Trump?
I support Trump for the reason that we are living in a country that's giving people misinformation. Trump has nothing to do with the suffering of anybody. He's never been an elected official. Under free speech, he's entitled to say anything he wants to say. If you don't like it, don't vote for him. If you don't like him, form an organization against him so that he won't get elected and did get elected. And people did not do that, especially Black and Latinos. Black and Latinos have enough problems. Need to try to get laws passed to represent, to give them the freedom that was never given. In the black community, we had Frederick Douglass with Abraham Lincoln to pass the Emancipation Proclamation, and then Dr. Martin Luther King had LBJ to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and the Fair Housing Act of 68, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We had John Lewis with Dr. Martin Luther King, but John Lewis, who was sold out under the Planned Parenthood, which is a hidden genocide against blacks and Latinos, and no one understands anything about the eugenics movement.
Hey, Jimmy, can I interrupt you for a second? Because I have a question for you, okay? I know that you have a lot of strongly held views, and no one's trying to dispute that they're your views and that they're strongly held. But my question to you is, a president who wants to cut vouchers so kids can get meals for free, an education department, national, the one that Trump's people run, wants to diminish things coming into the public schools and divert those monies to private school education. How is that good for a community that you're talking about right now? How is that good for the African American and other minority community?
My people are being evacuated from every corner of this planet, and you're worried about one little small thing that doesn't matter. That's what the rich concern.
Wait. What? Education doesn't matter and food doesn't matter?
Concerned of people who are being eradicated from this planet, and these people who can't afford to pay rent, who can't afford to, who not being employed, that's a concern for right now. You're worried about something that's not a major concern. You go to the primary issues that concern so we can get this country back on track and leave Donald Trump alone. Donald Trump needs help. He needs us to stand behind him and not knock him. President Barack Obama was the worst president. But black people loved him, Hispanic people loved him, white people loved him. But he did the worst thing.
Jimmy, I'm not going to argue with you about whether Obama was a good or bad president. I'm not going to argue whether Trump has some programs that you like, or the fact that the black community has been sold down the river by the Democratic Party, which I think, they've done it less than the Republicans, but since they are supposedly the party of the oppressed, they have fallen down for many years in that. But I'm asking, how can you say to me and to our listeners that kids going hungry when they were being fed in the schools is not a serious issue? I'm really not understanding.
Did he pass the law? You running your mouth? Did he pass the law to say that? This is the law. What do you get your information?
Wait, can I, Jimmy? Are you calling it from a cell phone or a landline?
I'm on the phone. I'm on my phone. I'm on the cell phone.
Okay, because
where did you get your information? Your information is called Donald Trump has not passed anything against anyone. You want to hear Trump? You have to be passed into law. So don't go to bed handing out negative rhetoric to your listeners.
Jimmy, we can't understand almost every word you're saying. We're missing because you're yelling.
The connection is not as good as a landline, so you have to speak slower.
Right. Okay, let me say this clearly. Donald Trump has been over the 100+ days.
I don't.
Black people and Latinos.
Okay, Jimmy, we're going to break now. If it's possible, if you have a landline, when we come back, this is going to be like a 7 or 8 minute break. In the next 7 or 8 minutes, if you can call back on a landline, that would be great. And Nicole, we're going to get you when we come back as well. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. We'll be right back after a Fox News break and a Fox Business News break.
On the radio, the voice of the people, where many different voices are heard in the land.
WVOX. Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the radio. I'm Peter Moses with John Sharan and Ardina Seward. If you hear John laughing, it's because he wants me to do the introduction. I think for most of the show,
it's only because the bottom line is, you're ready, you're set up, and then as the music's going.
Yeah, I said John. Yeah, that's true. So we have three people on the line now, and Jimmy, we're going to have to put you to the side for a little while and let these other two people talk. We have with us Nicole Mincy. Nicole runs Trump 45 or 45. What is it? 45?
It's Pro Trump 45.
Oh yes, it's Pro Trump 45. I understand you're in Southern Jersey in Camden. Is that correct?
Nicole, are you there, or did we lose you?
I think we lost Nicole. But we do have Efrain Gonzalez with us, right? Efrain, you and I have known each other for a long time. I covered your dad, and I know I covered you some of the time. I used to work at the Post, and then I worked at Channel 9. I think you and I knew each other when I was at Channel 9.
Yeah, well, I've been around not only with my father, but because my father introduced me in the 70s to the political scene, and I've never been the same ever since. I've actually been, and back in the day, in the 70s, the Bronx was actually like what we see a battleground race in congressional districts.
We were just talking about that. We were talking about what Hoe Avenue and Fox Street looked like in the 80s. We didn't go back to the 70s, but in the 80s, which is, I guess, when Ardina and I would have started spending time there, and how it's changed since then. My question to you is fairly simple, though. Since you are a Bronx guy, and the Bronx, some of the zip codes in the Bronx are the poorest districts in the United States. That includes Appalachia, that includes parts of the Southwest, that includes the entire South, even areas where there's a lot of coal miners and coal mining. But the South Bronx, parts of the South Bronx, have the lowest per capita. How can you support a president who is taking food out of the mouths of school children because he doesn't believe in the programs where they're able to eat because the government's willing to pay for breakfast and lunch?
Well, I could tell you that the issue in the South Bronx was not affected, and it really wasn't an issue with the presidential campaign. It is one of the poorest, but it's one of the poorest that's been under Democratic control. And, there's kind of like two Democratic parties in New York State. There are the Democrats that pander to the minority vote in the city of New York, where you see them say certain things, and then they try to just get the masses to go with them. And then in upstate New York, you have a governor who doesn't even put I think only 3 Latino appointments out of 109 in the state of New York. I think that what we have to understand is that the poor, and the reason why they were poor and why nothing was brought there was because back in the day, even before I was born, people left. There used to be very industrial neighborhoods and that district, and there were people that lived there, but the times changed, and we never saw the need for the state to put resources into that district. So that's a double-edged sword, though, because when you see people in a poor neighborhood, in a poor district, there have been some success stories in the South Bronx, but it wasn't because of Republicans that actually was the case. It wasn't like a national. It was New York, and it was about a lot of people looking the other way, and particularly because there were people who were Hispanic, people who they were African American, and yet the people who were leaving and say, "Oh, you guys are so poor," they were the ones that took all the resources away. And I don't want to get into name calling, but a lot of people are very ignorant in both parties.
Efrain,
I'm just the guy that'll call it out.
Efrain, I'm curious. When we've been led to believe that you're a Trump supporter. Are you a supporter of his policies, or are you a person who believes that the Democratic policies are just something you don't want to support?
I was the only reason, and I think a lot of people took this, and this is what happened with this. When the campaign was getting going, okay, and I was listening to both sides, the only thing that I agreed with President Trump was that he was talking to the people that were like me, that were middle class, that have been forgotten, and also because there was a lot of stuff going on in the Democratic Party. I actually supported Bernie Sanders, something a lot of people didn't realize. And Bernie and President Trump actually were very similar in a lot of their viewpoints. I know that Bernie Sanders is very ultra progressive, but in terms of talking to the middle class, no. And that was only during the election. Whatever's going on now, no, I'm not supporting the policies because there hasn't really been any policies that have been allowed to be put out. So he's having talking points, but now it's up to the Congress. So I'm waiting on Congress before I could say anything going forward. And unbelievably, I cannot believe all of the antics that are happening, and nobody's getting to the table to talk to each other. Now, I can blame the president for that, and I can also blame the congressional leaders, primarily someone like Chuck Schumer. So I think the ego, as my father would say, the A&E channel, the arrogance and ego, has to stop on both sides, because you cannot be a leader of a country and just deal with one side of the nation. You can't just deal with your party.
Okay, can we hear from Nicole on that point? Nicole, are you on the line? Nicole, are you on the line?
Apparently not.
I think we're Nicolas right now.
I think we are Nicolas. Nicole, if you're listening, then phone back in, because we'd love to hear your voice. And Jimmy, are you still there?
About to hang up.
No. Did you listen to what Efrain had said?
I don't listen to any of that. Let people talk. I don't listen to any of that. I have things that I like to talk about that's very important as well. I don't pay it for nobody.
Well, then it's kind of hard to have a debate. But
well, the good thing is, Jimmy, you have a better connection and you're coming across clearer, so that's good.
Okay, in terms of Trump, Jimmy, in terms of Trump's policies, let's get back to policies. How do you feel about his policies within the African American and the Latino community? And going forward, what do you think he can do or will do to help the black community and the Latino community?
It's not what he can do. It's what the black and Latino community can do. Stop bashing this president who's done nothing to them and get on the bandwagon with America, because Americans are getting eradicated from the planet. And this is something they can't afford to pay the rent, can't afford to pay the mortgage. Veterans can't even get money to build student to get homes. Veterans can't get money for nothing. And these are the ones that everyone talk about the most. And people are hurting, and they need help. To come on and bash Trump, and Trump just became president of the United States.
Okay, I got to cut you off because we're about to go to the break, and we'll pick that up on the other side. So stay tuned, audience, and check us out when the break is over.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm John Sharan, and along with Ardina Seward and Peter Moses, and we have an interesting topic today. We have a topic about Latinos and African Americans who supported Donald Trump in the last election.
And still support him.
Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I mean, the bottom line is, as we talked to Efrain, he's not necessarily in favor. They're able to make a decision on their policies yet because Congress hasn't done anything there. And we were talking with Jimmy McMillan, and Jimmy, you were telling us a little about your positions on this situation. Why don't you continue?
My position is a hidden agenda. The attack on the World Trade Center was clearly to eradicate those who became a burden to the white man, black and Latino. They cannot rent, they cannot buy, and no one will sell to them in the city of Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, Manhattan, and Queens. These people are being eradicated from this place. You look at a building in New York now. In 2001, the building was $297,000 to buy. Now it's 1-point-something million to buy. I'm not getting mad at the average white, because the average white have nothing to do with it. These are the rich, powerful elite who are running these people out of it because they want to evict them from this planet. They made millions off of slavery, and now they're spending millions to get rid of them. So I'm here to save these people and give these people an opportunity to raise their children, live in a home, and be able to go to school. Let me tell you a little secret. When I come out of Vietnam, I was in Vietnam for 3 years.
And Jimmy, why would Donald Trump give you a better chance to achieve that?
No. Donald Trump has never been president. He's never been an elected official. Did you take a bath this morning? You changed your drawers, didn't you? I hope you did.
Yes, sir.
This is what Donald Trump means to us. It's a chance. Frederick Douglass had Abraham Lincoln. Dr. Martin Luther King had LBJ. We have no one to help us moving forward. We are a species of Homo sapiens. In some places, they still call me a baboon, A for gorilla. They look at me as a baboon, A for gorilla.
So you believe
Donald Trump has not done that.
So you believe
give this man a chance.
You believe the existing policies just are stacked against the African American community. So you voted for change. You voted for change. In other words,
who told you that? Who told you that?
You just did.
Not stacked against African Americans. The policy before Donald Trump came into office was stacked against us. There's a hidden agenda called the Eugenesis Program who don't want me on this planet nor my children. Where my children? My children can't afford to pay an apartment of 1 bedroom now, $4,600 a month for rent.
But didn't Trump do the same thing? Did Trump not do the same thing? He's a big real estate magnate in New York City. How many black people could afford to live in his buildings?
Don't you sound silly?
No, I don't.
A landlord with one or two buildings. When you got a city and all 5 boroughs have different landlords where the rent guidelines for rent stabilization board is all controlled by current governor Andrew Cuomo, who signed a stipulation to discontent, and all these people changed the housing law, the federal housing law of 1964. They changed it. They made it impossible. But you go to court, the same judge you faced in court was appointed to the bench by the landlord, by the landlord's attorney, who sits on a committee to appoint him to the bench. You have a lot of corruption. Let me go back to what I was saying before you cut me off. I used to work for the school program. They paid me. It was an organized crime group when I come out of Vietnam. I got paid out of the school lunch program. There's so much corruption in the state. When I became a private investigator, I went to school for it in 1989, but when I realized there's so much was wrong in the state, I said I better step in and run for public office. I ran for governor in 2010 to bring all this stuff up because the nonsense needs to stop. Don't try to run me nowhere. I don't have the money you have. I'm 400 years behind on whatever money you got. That when I say me, I'm talking about everybody who is out there hurting you. In the beginning, it was targeted at black people. Now white people are hurting and suffering. Stop the nonsense and feed the people. Leave Donald Trump. I'm a Vietnam veteran who listened to my commander-in-chief. And as it is right now, I don't care what Donald Trump got to say about me. He is the commander-in-chief. This is who you listen to get this country on the right track. But the Democratic Party trying to got everybody believing Donald Trump ain't squat, and all y'all believe that, and y'all are going against this man because the Democratic Party got all this stuff going on in court. Leave the man alone, let the man get the nation get this nation together. All these court dates that Donald Trump is leading is ridiculous and an embarrassment to America, and y'all should be ashamed.
Hey, Jimmy, let me ask you a question. The Republicans throughout Obama's presidency sued him in court. They went after him any which way they could. They attacked his complete agenda. They wouldn't vote on things that he wanted to create change with. They gave him not a quarter, not an inch. So how is it fair for you to expect that everyone's just going to fall down and give Donald Trump a chance when the last president never got a chance from the entire Republican Party with very few exceptions?
Would you listen? You on the radio and people listen to you, but you need to be quiet and listen to what is correct. Barack Obama gave $50 billion to every banking corporation in the country. That left the American people a 61% shareholders. I hope that Donald Trump can get a hold of it because he will know. I was on Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, and they said, Jimmy, what would you do? I told them both the American president have to waive the debt of the American people because the Barack Obama put America in such a big hole you can't get out of. This is a difference. But because he don't know, even though he's the president, he don't know everything. I said to myself, well, let me support him. Maybe he will listen to what I have to say because he know how to count. American public don't know how to count. Y'all look at all the things that what Donald Trump did, but Donald Trump didn't do nothing to the American people. And what President Barack Obama, he hurt this country severely. A hole that the American public cannot get out of, and especially those who are 400 years behind will not get out of. This country needs help. But going after Donald Trump now, what he did when Barack Obama came up with the health care plan, it sucked. American people need to stand behind this president. When I was in Vietnam, I was almost killed by a commander they put in charge of us. I disobeyed his order, and I refused to listen to him because if I would have listened to him, I knew I would have been killed. We need to follow and let Donald Trump take this nation into the direction we know.
Why do we want to give up our free will to allow Donald Trump?
Who told you that? You're listening to tell people. What kind of free will you got? Who took your free will away from you?
You just said that we should just let Donald Trump do what he wants to do with the country and give him a chance. Where are the checks and balances in what you're advocating? Where are the checks and balances, Jimmy?
Checks and balances for what? Because y'all standing away with this nonsense. No sign, no law passed nonsense. Give this man a chance to pass laws to help the American family and to help the American people. Got black hate and Puerto Rican because y'all doing this advocating negative against the president, and it makes no sense. It's a disgrace for me as a veteran to listen to y'all. You talk about call Donald Trump name. Let me repeat this. I don't give a F-flying F if Donald Trump.
Okay, we can't use profanity here, so please don't.
I said flying F. That's not profanity.
Okay.
The word damn in my part.
I understand that. We're not going to get back to that. Go ahead.
No. The question of it is to support this president all the way. This man, because he beat the Democratic Party ASS bad. All y'all hate it. They got whipped, and they should have got whipped because they brought no agenda to the table, coming in using the black community, all the evangelists, just to vote for them to keep the nonsense.
See, I think Jimmy, they took advantage of the Democrats took for granted the black community and has done very little but pay lip service to the problems that exist, not just in the inner cities, but in this.
You're saying what I'm saying. So what you talk about Trump for? I listen very carefully. Why are you agreeing with me and you talking about what Trump did? That's exactly what they did.
But Trump has no plan to fix that. He wants to take money and services away from poor people. And some of those poor people are black, some of them are Latinos, some of them are Mexican, some of them are Asian, some of them are white. I mean, the things he wants to take away and keep for the rich. A lot of these plans that he has enriches already rich people. And I don't understand how you, as a grassroots kind of guy, don't see that. How is it
talking pure nonsense? You do that because you have the power over radio. But you're feeding negative nonsense into people. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. People need to go in a better direction to get this country in the right direction. Listen, I remember when black people were being hung. I come out of Vietnam. That was then. This is now. Now we have a different time. Stop going back to what happened before he was elected. This man is now president. This president needs every support of every American citizen, and y'all need to start acting like it.
Let's give Efrain a chance to
Efrain, do you? We're going to be going to break in a second. Efrain, when we come back, we're gonna spend the final quarter hour mostly with you. Are you okay with that, Efrain?
Okay. I left a lot of soldiers.
Okay, well, it's Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. We've had some interesting shows in the past few weeks. This is the first one that involves a lot of screaming. So, and Ardina is hitting her bell to get it to stop. We'll be back after these words.
Only local station.
WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
And we are back live with Westchester Eye on the Radio. And I'm with my fabulous co-host, Pete the Pete Moses and John the Man Sharan. And Efrain, I'm sure you were listening to that last
tirade.
Yeah.
Peter's calling it a tirade. I'm trying to call it I'm trying to mollify calling it a position statement. So what do you so let's hear from you. What do you think about what just transpired?
Okay. Well, I think that and I respect Jimmy McMillan. I respect his point of view in terms of his fight. It's devastating what I see is happening in the inner city, especially in New York, and actually a lot of my friends that I work with who live in Harlem are being pushed out. Their children are not able to rent because he's right, the rent's too high. Now, one thing I want people to understand, the election that happened was a culmination of Trump speaking to certain segments of society and the Hillary Clinton campaign refusing to speak to certain segments of society. There was a problem there, and I've been involved in many campaigns, Ardina, and what I saw was that back in December of 2015, I noticed that there was some push and pull, and that the Bernie Sanders campaign were making inroads in certain places in the Rust Belt, because it really came back to the Rust Belt to how Trump won the presidency. And you saw that there were people that were kind of quiet. They were rolling with Bernie, and she wasn't appealing to people. Now, I want people to understand something. I don't think that she was a polished, go-get-'em type of campaigner, because the U.S. Senate seat was virtually given to her. She never really worked herself to win a good, hard down, battled election. And everybody tells you that the primaries, there's so many people involved, and there's no explicitity. What happened with her was that she had too many yes people. If I was on her campaign, I probably would have left, because you cannot tell somebody something, this isn't going to work, and then they refuse to listen, and then it was my way or the highway. Okay. Well, apparently she went down the highway of Route 6.
And that is why she lost, because she couldn't listen, she couldn't pivot, she couldn't think on her feet. She thought that just like when she ran for Senate, which she was successful at, she wasn't running for Senate. She thought it was a coronation. She thought that she was going to win no matter what. The sheer arrogance of Hillary Clinton is what cost her the election. The fact that she has no human qualities that I was able to discern. And let me tell you something. When she ran for Senate the first time, every time I had to do a press conference with her, I was all over her. Just like I was all over your dad when things came up that I didn't agree with her. I thought things were said that were wrong. I mean, I was a very aggressive bulldog reporter and producer, right, Ardina?
Yeah. Now I get that from my father, because I'm the blue dog and I have a radio show that I do on the internet. And it's funny that I bring up things and he even tells me, well, the blue dogs in the South are different than people like you. But at least he acknowledges that I'm a blue dog. The thing is that being a blue dog just means that I may vote for a certain type of Democrat, and I could even vote for a Republican if I don't feel you. And in this particular election, I just thought that, I said, what the hell? Just give Trump a chance. Now, that was just because of what they did with Bernie Sanders. And I want people to understand something. Right. The issues in the poor parts of, like, the South Bronx were because of the Democratic Party mostly. Not everything. There are some things that the Republicans have to be responsible in the state legislature. Right now, it's just a mess with the IDC helping the Republicans. And, if I ever ran for Senate, I would definitely never be a part of the IDC. And that's what we need. We need people to come together, just like in New York and Albany in the legislature. So we got a bunch of people who are in office, but they don't know how to do things.
By the way, what do you do for a living?
What do I do? I work for a hospital. I work as a PCT in a hospital, and I'm a photographer.
Which hospital?
I work for Montefiore.
So you're in the Bronx.
I'm in the Bronx. Yes.
Are you at the campus? Are you at the campus Off of East Gun Hill, or no?
No. I'm on the campus over by Weiler, by Eastchester Road.
Okay.
So when I'm in the district, the 13th Councilmanic District, which was a fiasco because you've got an Assemblyman, Marco Gonzalez, who's running, and then the Bronx Democratic Party chairman decided to endorse him. And I said, this is bad because, that guy Gonzalez never paid his dues to anything in our community. And I said, well, I think they're going to make a mistake. And then the Latino community was looking at this county leader, and they said, well, look, if we're that good and you're going to stop empowering Latinos, and this is all I'm going to say, if we've completed everything we needed in our quest to be leaders, then I would have had no problem with it. But the thing is this. I actually told my father, he couldn't believe this. I would love to be, if somebody told me, would you be an elected official or the county leader of the Bronx Democratic Party? I want to be the county leader of the Bronx Democratic Party.
I don't blame you. And you could keep that job probably for 20 years because all those guys.
Great move.
Wait, do you remember Stanley Friedman?
Yeah, Stanley Friedman.
So when Stanley Friedman
one day told me, let me tell you how far back I go. One day my father was running for district leader, and then Stanley Friedman was helping Fernando Ferrer. And Fernando Ferrer beat my father by about 90 votes. But my father ran a great campaign in 82. And I remember telling Stanley Friedman, I don't care what you say, I'm going to help my father win the next time. And that's exactly what we did. We won that the next time with their candidate. And then he was getting so cute, because he was very arrogant, that a man by the name of Rudy Giuliani, who was a U.S. attorney, went after him, and there was a scandal because of Queensboro President Donald Maness tried to kill himself by chasing.
Wait a minute, he didn't try to kill himself.
He was successful.
I was at his house, outside his house, when he committed suicide.
Yeah, but he tried to do it in December of 1980.
Yeah, but just think about it. Donald Maness couldn't do anything right. He was the laziest, dumbest politician I've ever met. Anyway, before we get into that, let me just ask you one more question, and then I do want to apologize. We had a couple of callers who did not get on the air today because we had two guests on. And Freddie, if you're listening, we're sorry that we couldn't get to you today. We'd like to take our callers. And my friend Steve Miller is very insulted that we didn't put him on here today. And I said that I would apologize for not answering both of them because Steve claims that he'll never listen to the show again.
He should tune in next week because we're going to have Steve Romano is a cinematographer who is opening the first ever movie production studio in downtown Yonkers, also known as the YO.
So bottom line, are you supporting Trump right now?
I'm supporting right now. Like I said, I have a mixed bag because I don't see policy getting through his. You got to have domestic policy.
I understand that, but I asked you a question, Efrain. Are you supporting Trump right now?
Right now, I'm sort of like I support him to do well, but I don't know if it's going to go well. So I want him to do well because he's going to be there.
Okay, so I think that's a really sanguine answer. I think it does speak a little bit. It does speak a little bit to being raised by a politician.
It's very cryptic.
You sort of answered, but sort of didn't. I understand that because you don't want to tip your cards too much. So I'd like to thank both of our guests for appearing on the air today. We have no gift other than our thanks. Who do we have, Ardina, next week?
We have Steve Romano next week, who is opening the first ever movie production studio in the downtown YO. And for all of you who are not in the know, that is Yonkers, y'all. So be there or be square.
And
see you next Monday.
And Steve Miller could call in next week if he wants to. Everybody have a great week, and please avoid the storm coming up.
From the world headquarters of Whitney Global Media, this is 1460 WVOX and WVIP HD2, New Rochelle.